Frank. Action.
Action! Soren Kierkegaard, Danish, 19th century, I believe. The formative figure, the creator, arguably, of a school called existentialism. Kierkegaard, in the early 18th century, is looking around him, and he's troubled by what he perceives to be a contradiction or a hypocrisy that he sees in his society. It's the advancing modern West. It's Europe, and he sees two conflicting behaviors from his perspective in the humans around him and his tribe. They're very devout on a Sunday. They go to church. They observe the holidays. They read their Bible. But then he sees in the other parts of their week nefarious activity. In business, in romance, in marriage. They do not treat their fellow human beings in what he perceives to be a righteous way. So there's this conflict that he sees. Which one is it? Is it faith and treating people in a good way, in a positive, constructive, righteous way? Or is it just cutthroat, do what you got to do, stab people in the back? He looks at history and he tries to find an example of what he calls true faith. This is a concept that is coined or minted by Kierkegaard, true faith. It's actually a song by New Order. And it's a standard that Kierkegaard sets, saying, is there anybody that has ever walked the earth who lives in a true righteous faith that is perhaps more divinity than flesh? And in all of their behaviors and all of their actions, there's a purity, and they treat all around them with a light and a righteousness. And he goes all through history and he tries to find an example. And the person that he'll find, I'll talk to you about in our next video. And the reason that he identifies this figure as the only example in history of true faith, and a perfect example of true faith, is an interesting set of reasoning or analysis or hoops that Kierkegaard will jump through. And we'll talk about each of these hoops in the next video. But at the end of this inquiry, Kierkegaard finds himself lying in bed at night in what he calls fear and trembling, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling in fear and trembling, which is the name of his book, which he writes pseudonymously, because he wonders every night if he can live up to the standard of true faith, as did this figure that he investigated in history. And he has his doubts. He's not sure. So Kierkegaard is now forming a new school in the world of philosophy. It's largely in response to the run that we had from Descartes in 1641 with Meditations, all the way to Kant in the late 1700s with Critique of Pure Reason, which was basically a group of folks who came championing the notion of reason, the notion of logic, the notion of method. And Kierkegaard creates a contradictory school called existentialism, which challenges reason, saying reason has not given us any answers, and instead the existentialists will investigate something called absurdity, that this reality around us, if it even exists, it probably doesn't. It might be nihilistic. It's certainly absurd. And that, as their basis, becomes the point of departure for their inquiries and investigations. After Kierkegaard would come folks like Nietzsche, Heidegger, Sartre, and then after Sartre comes Camus, who's beyond existentialism. So we're going to talk about each of those, but in the next video we'll talk about Kierkegaard and who it was that he studied to be the standard of true faith. Ganagona. Big thank you to my beautiful, wise, knowing wife, to our feline Desmond, who knows all the secrets but will never tell us, and to Soren Kierkegaard. I leave you now.